Hi, hello. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. 844-766-6607. Hickson has it. Hotline if you'd like to be part of the program. All right. Tax reform, where we get it. Cannot believe federal government same way. They won't give people back their money that's out there working, busting their fannies. Everything's about more money for government. It's an incredible thing to watch. They're saying Trump needs a legislative accomplishment. Well, let me get this straight. Legislative accomplishment. The legislature and the Republicans need a legislative accomplishment, not Trump. We need something for the American people, not for Trump. But they don't see that. They don't understand that. If they did, it would something would have been done already. This is on the Republican Party. This is on the National Republican Party. Actually, it's on the Republican legislators, Senate and the House. They're the ones that have to come through with something. And if they don't do it, they're the ones in trouble next year. I tell you what people don't like. They can handle a liar. They cannot handle a hypocrite. Hypocrites will get beat up way more than a liar. Because what happened with a liar, I'll give you an example. If somebody lies in the Democrat Party, they don't leave them. But they will leave a hypocrite. They can say, well, the guy lied about that, but at least he was honest about it. How you like that, Brandon? Honest liar. But the hypocrite, I didn't do that. I would never do that, and I already did it. By the way, we're all hypocrites sometimes. Yes, me included. I include myself, and try not to be. Hate it when it happens. Hate to be a hypocrite. Politicians, on the other hand, they don't care about if they're hypocrites or not. And apparently Republicans don't care if they're considered hypocrites. When you give us the House, give us the Senate, give it as presidency. We gave it everything, and you still can't move anything forward. If it wouldn't be for Trump's already accomplished a few things. Okay, he has. And he's had to accomplish them by himself. It's just the way it is. 844-766-6607. All right, Brandon, introduce the next guest, if you don't mind, if you can do that for me.
All right, so our next guest is Kayleigh McEnany. This is from the RNC, and it's the Republican National Committee to talk about the tax reform issue.
Okay, did you say Kayleigh?
Kayleigh, nice to talk to you, Moon.
Kayleigh, how you doing? All right, Kayleigh, a big deal about tax reform. I was really hoping some president would come along instead of and governor too, that would trying to take all of our money to really come up with some tax reform that helps businesses and people get back on their feet. So tell us what's going on and will this happen? That's the big question. Will it happen?
It will happen, and we are increasingly confident of that. And I think you just hit the nail on the head when you said the priority is people and businesses. Both of those are top on the president's list. We know middle-class tax cuts are a big push and part of this tax cut package, and so, too, is the corporate tax rate coming down. We have one of the highest in the industrialized world. And just to give your listeners some perspective here, I found this to be startling, and I actually gasped when I read it, that the Tax Foundation averages that Americans pay more out of pocket in taxes than housing, clothing, and food combined. I mean, that is striking. It's unfair, it's unjust, and it needs to change.
Oh, no doubt about it. But I ask you the question again, will it? Will it change?
It will.
Because that's the big thing. Will it get the votes? Because, they got to accomplish something as a legislature. I think Trump's accomplished some things, but I just don't think as a group, as the Republicans that are running everything now, I just don't see the big accomplishment right now. We've been all disappointed, to be honest with you.
And you would be right to be disappointed. There were promises made to the American people that need to happen. Obamacare repeal and replace is one of them, and tax cuts is the next. And I understand your frustration and the frustration of Republican voters. But what I would say is that last week, the passing of a budget in the Senate really paves the way for tax cuts, because what it does is it allows us to get tax cuts passed with just 51 votes. We are increasingly encouraged that senators like Rand Paul, who have been kind of the roadblock to Obamacare previously, has indicated a willingness to get on board and provide much needed relief for the American people.
Yeah. Kayleigh McEnany with the you with the Republican National Committee, is that correct?
That's right, yes.
Okay. let's go back to this. Why would anybody be against, Democrats included? And by the way, they're against everything, anything Trump wants to do. Why would anybody be against people keeping more of their money? This could be, and like you said, the businesses getting that tax deal down to about 20%. I don't know if it'll stop there. It may go up to 25, but bring it down from the 35. This has got to help the American people in a tremendous way. Nobody wants growth but me. Me and you, we're the only two people that want growth.
Apparently, Moon. And, you ask a good question when you talk about Democrats. I mean, they used to be a party willing to take a bet on the American people. They used to be a party in the days of President Kennedy that was willing to say, hey, if the American people keep more of their money, they will make this country the greatest on earth, an economic powerhouse globally. They used to have faith in the American people, but somewhere along the line, they lost faith. And now you see Democrats not willing to come on board. We may have one or two moderates come on board, but how sad that we live in a country now with one party that says we know how to spend your money better than you, the American people.
It's sad. We were talking about it earlier today. I read the comments from former President Jimmy Carter, and he was saying Russians didn't steal an election. They didn't vote for Hillary. Obama fell short of his promises. The media is harder on Trump than any other president. And then the NFL national anthem. And I told that to Brandon. Brandon's a lot younger than me, my producer. And I said, I remember a day I didn't particularly care what Democrats stood for, but they didn't stand against everything that they stand against now. And I said, it's like the whole party's been taken over by, and I don't want to be ugly, but Marxists or something else, because at least when Republican Democrats, it was arguments and fights, and you may not like each other, but now it's just so bad and so ugly that you don't want to do what's best for the American people ever. You want to do what's best for your political party, and that doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't make sense. They've become the party of no, and they've also become the party of the extreme left. The fact that you have more than half of Democratic senators signing on to single-payer, socialized medicine, something that's failed other countries. We know that there have been deaths that have actually been directly attributed to some of these wait lists in Europe, and now you have a party that's not only the party of no, but the party of extreme leftist, if not socialist policies. So we encourage Democrats to get on board. We hope that they become more reasonable and moderate in their thoughts and get on board with the agenda that the American people elected on November 8th.
You remember how, and I don't know how old you are, and I'm not asking. So don't answer. But I remember, well, that's what I'm saying, you're a young lady. But and Brandon's a little bit older than you, but I remember the day when Ronald Reagan came along, even though they had a bunch of people who didn't want to get along, go along, Democrats were forced to go along with Reagan because our country was in trouble. And I feel like that now. We kind of in trouble if we're not careful. So why wouldn't they come along with what's good for the country? If it's bad for the country, that's fine. But this is good for the country that people can keep more of their money and be able to make it better in their own lives. This is a good thing.
It is, but, Democrats are set on party interest over the people's interest. It's all about what's best for the party, how they're going to play partisan political games. That is the order of the day. The days of compromise and the Reagan years and the infamous Gingrich years when he was speaker, that seems to be gone. Now we have a Democratic Party that is just set on being extreme, not willing to work and to come to the middle. And, that's sad because all polling suggests that Americans want to see bipartisanship. And even President Trump has said, I'm open to working with Democrats. Let's come have a discussion. But that's a discussion that they appear on most issues not willing to have.
Yeah, by the way, I don't blame Trump. I would work with whoever's going to work with me to move something forward in a positive way. It's just hard to believe where we've come from. Like I said, first time I voted was 79. To come now that we got one party that's never going to give in to anything that's even good for the American people. All right, can I hold, Kayleigh, I want to hold this against you. I'm going to hold this against you if we don't get this done, because this is something that has to be done. Now, I got a feeling the position you're in, you kind of know where the Republicans are headed on this, and I'm hoping the McCains and the Lindsey Grahams and people like that can get on board.
Yes, they should get on board, but everything seems to be heading in the right direction. And not to get too, nuanced here, but it looks like the House might just clean pass of the Senate budget, which would give us 10 to 12 more legislative days to work on these tax cuts. So we're not only optimistic, we're increasingly hopeful that they happen this year as early as Thanksgiving, but, as late as Christmas is what we're hoping for.
All righty, Kayleigh, I'll let you go. Thank you. Appreciate the optimism. I want to see it happen, though, I guess, is the big thing. And I know y'all working hard to make it happen.
You and me both, Moon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sugar. All right, Moon Griffon Show, great to have you with us. 844-766-6607. Hickson has that hotline if you'd like to be part of the program. But we tried to get him Friday. He was busy. We got him today, Representative Lance Harris. Lance, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Moon. How are you?
Man, I am doing superb. All right, can you tell us, I know y'all been meeting a lot, and I know y'all met last week, and can you tell us what's going on? You know, the press makes a big deal. Headlines today, Associated Press, all talk, no agreement for Louisiana lawmakers on budget cliff, but and it's still kind of early. I mean, everybody's kind of talking to see what's out there. Tell us what's going on.
Absolutely, it's early. You know, I don't know how they've been observing the legislative process over the past 20, 30 years, or even 100 years. It takes time to put these options together. It takes time to look at all the facts, and that's what we're doing now. I can tell you, the Republican delegation, we've had regional meetings all over the state, and I got to hand it to Speaker Barra. He has worked his you-know-what off trying to meet with the Democrats and Republicans. He's been at all of our meetings. And it kind of culminated last week with a bipartisan meeting in Baton Rouge to just educate ourselves on new information that has come to light, and that being where we are in our fiscal house right now, where we are with our budget, what's coming in, what kind of tax revenues we're having, what kind of expenditures are we seeing in trends, and just to kind of re-educate ourselves on what we're facing in this upcoming fiscal year. And I can tell you, I probably logged in 1,000, 1,500 miles in the last 3 weeks, and I know the speaker has, and he's gone around the state. And what we're trying to do is see what bubbles to the surface that we can keep the conversation going to where if we are called into a special session, we're way ahead of the ball game. We're not engaged in gridlock, and we're able to find a solution that at least makes a majority of the people happy, I guess, to put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I just think that, they keep writing all this stuff. Like you said, the process is going to be the process. There's nothing a whole lot you can do about it. There's no votes being taken to next year when a session starts or a special session starts. So it's not like you have to have a deal in place today. I just thought the headlines were kind of silly when you say, well, no deal cut, all talk. Well, yeah, that's how you start. You talk about it before you put it in place.
Right, exactly. And, maybe they want us just to raise everybody's taxes by $1.5 billion. I don't know. That's what the budget cliff is right now. I don't see that happening because, a lot of that in our state general fund summary in our 5-year baseline, it's a projection. And so there's about $490 million that's in there in continuation that probably won't be funded. So we're looking at about $1 billion, $1.1 billion in lost revenue that's coming off books, and that's what we've got to grapple with. And
okay,
you just can't come out overnight and figure it out.
Well, I think a lot of this, one of the reasons I didn't want to see a sales tax pass because it was temporary. And I tried to tell a few lawmakers, one of them told me, we got them now, we got them where we want them. I said, no, they got you kind of because they're going to come back and say, okay, we got $1 billion, $1.2 billion be replaced. But it really all centers around the sales tax. So my question is, what are constituents telling you about the sales tax? Is this something that will be renewed? What's happening with this?
Well, I really, and that's what these discussions are about. I don't know if the sales tax will be renewed. I know a lot of our members said it's temporary and it should remain temporary. To tell you the truth, Moon, it's been very quiet about the sales tax. And I tell you, a lot of my constituents, I'm in a very conservative district, say, well, look, if you've got a tax, that's probably one of the fairest taxes because even the guy that's collecting money at the stoplight to go spend it on something, whether it's cigarettes or beer, he's paying his fair share. So maybe that's the reason. I don't know. I don't foresee the whole 1% or 1 penny being renewed. Some of it may be renewed as a bridge to get us to where we need to be on tax reform. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a combination of spending reforms and tax reform. We have to do the spending reform first, period. That means that we've got to do some things to make sure we are controlling the Medicaid cost. We've got to do some things to make sure that we have a spending level that's in line with the economy. That means that we have to change how we're doing that right now. It doesn't make sense for us to just be able to increase the budget by 5% or 4.53%, which is what this new budget does over this year, and then the economy is only growing at 0.1%.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable. So we've got to do some of those measures, and they've got to be part of the package that we insist on if we do anything in tax reform.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Representative Lance Harris, my special guest. He's one of the leaders for the Republican Party, really, in the state of Louisiana, about trying to get stuff done. Well, I guess I'm just tired of reading about it. It's like the Edwards side of the equation and the pro-Edwards press, all they want is tax increases. The median income in this state's down 2%, one of the few states where the income has actually gone down. I kind of find that hard to believe that we would want to take even more money out of people's pocket, not to mention the health care debacle with people's insurance mine's going up 33% next year. I mean, how do we keep paying for all this stuff when people just can't afford it anymore? I mean, our job market is not as good as some other places. How do you keep taking money from people and telling them you're going to prosper, just give us more of your money?
Well, I'll tell you don't. I'll tell you what you have to do is make sure government is efficient. You got to make sure that we've got all the fraud covered. You got to make sure we're collecting all the sales tax that are due to the state, because a lot of people in some of these businesses don't report what they collect. And then you have to look at some of these exemptions and some of the credits. I look at some of this as government spending. When you have $160 million a year going to Hollywood, and that money is sent to Hollywood via a check, that's government spending.
Sure.
Why am I going to come and extract more money out of your pocket as a taxpayer to pay for a rich industry's tax credit? It does not make sense. So on the sales tax side, we have all kind of things that are exempt. Take, for example, advertising services. We're not collecting any sales tax on these lawyer billboards up and down the expressway and the interstate. How come I have to pay sales tax, and how come my business has to collect it, and some of these other businesses are not when they're selling tangible things? And so we have to look at every piece of the puzzle. And the way I want to look at it, and I know the way my delegation looks at it, and I know the way the speaker wants to look at it, is we want to be fair to the taxpayer, that person who ultimately pays the whole load. So that's where we're.
Well, the meat's in the middle. The money's going to come out of the middle class mostly. So if you do increase taxes on anything, somebody's going to pay it, and it's going to be the people in the middle class. They always pay it. But you got to look. If you don't look at government spending, I don't think this is just my opinion. I don't think you can ever get it right. If they're not willing to look at government and how government spends money, we'll never get it right.
That's why we have to have a spending limit that's tied to economic performance indicators. And many states have gone to that, and they are prosperous right now because of that. When government grows faster than the private sector, all you are doing is perpetuating poverty at some point, period.
And by the way, we've been doing that a while.
We have. There's no question about it. When you look at the figures, I know I get a lot of negative response when I say government has grown. Well, the numbers just do not lie. I can't tell you, they say government hadn't grown any over the last few years. Well, tell me this. Why was in 2014's budget our total means of finance $26.7 billion, and today it's $32.6 billion? Mm-hmm. Why in the world, if government's not growing, at the end of 2016 our total means of finance spending was $27 billion, and today it's $32.6 billion?
It's over It's over $5 billion, and everybody wants to know why we don't have enough money to do everything. It doesn't even make any sense to me.
And look, and everybody says, well, that includes federal dollars. Well, who do you think the money's coming from in those federal dollars? It's your taxpayer dollars. And look, it's just like anything else, almost like I tell my friends, crack cocaine. Everybody says, look, we need to do this federal match, but guess what? You're addicted to it. And then you have to continue to grow that program to get that federal match. And at some point, Washington's going to say, hey, we're going to go up on your FMAP. You've got to start paying more money back to us. It's bad policy. We have to control the total means of finance spending in this state in order to right-size our budget.
Now, let's take a break. Lance Harris, Representative Harris, my special guest. We'll come back, wrap up one more segment to go. Hi, y'all. Welcome back. Moon Griffon Show. Great to have you with us. Last segment to go today on a beautiful Monday, best day of the work week. Representative Lance Harris, my special guest. Hey, Lance, I know it's a tough situation, regardless of what ends up happening. Do you see, and you mentioned taxes on some things that not being taxed, but do you really think we'll go that direction? Because sometimes we grab some things that we can have unintended consequences, and that's why I want to be careful what we tax. Example, well, you mentioned ads, and I'm in the radio business. And when we charge a company, we don't charge a company taxes. Okay? But if a company, you go to a middle-class small business, and they're running ads, and all of a sudden they're at 10%. So let's say they're spending, $1,000 a month. All of a sudden, you go get that $1,000 and say, I'm only going to spend $900 now because of the new tax they got on us. Or somebody say, I'm not buying anymore. I just want us to be careful what we go grab because it could have a different effect. Got a lot of middle class people. I'm not just talking about that. I want to be careful what we go tax because I don't think we're a very friendly business state. And I want to be careful when we grab something that we don't make a mistake that actually hurts people. Well, by the way, I'm not saying you're proposing that. I'm just saying it was mentioned, and I'm sure when y'all meeting, a lot of things are being mentioned right now.
Look, I've got 5 pages of sales tax deal, and that's why I mentioned advertising to you, Moon. So we'd have that discussion.
Yeah,
that's your industry. So when we start talking about these things, that's what makes it so difficult. We at some point we do select winners and losers on stuff. I can tell you there's 5 pages of sales tax exemptions that I'm looking at. The losers the last time were business utilities, MM&E, those things that go into manufacturing, and so that is what we have to look at. And everybody says tax reform, get rid of tax credits. They don't realize that $2.695 billion is in the Constitution, and a lot of these are sales tax credits that you and I just talked about.
Yeah, but I want to be careful. I'm going to make it work whatever happens, but I want to be careful when I say that, Lance, is that when you're saying you're picking winners and losers, I'm already a loser in a big way in Obamacare. I'm one of the biggest losers out in the country. Now, I don't call myself a loser, but I'm at $3,500 a month. I think I'm paying my fair share when it comes to health care. Well, absolutely. You start going after, and I'm not just talking about this, CPAs, whoever. There's a lot of people out there with a sales tax, but in my business, we pay taxes. We pay payroll taxes. We pay all kind of other taxes. And
listen,
I just want to be careful because let me tell you why. Let's say you want to tax me, that's fine. I want to be careful in the fact that it sounds like to me it's creating more money for government, then that's taking away the argument that we're spending too much. That's what I want to be careful. We're spending too much now. So go and tax somebody else or spreading it out or challenging like that, I just want to be concerned. I think tax reform, the winners ought to be businesses and individuals. That's who ought to win, not government. Government ought to win after, but that ought to be 2 winners in tax reform, and I just want to make sure that's what we keep.
Absolutely. And look, that's part of the discussion.
Sure.
You have to see what's not being taxed and how you can more broadly apply a more fairer playing field. Because, look, and I'm not saying advertising yet. I brought that.
No, you brought it up. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, and that's one that has gone unscathed as we looked at the sales tax credits and stuff this last time. Because you hear a lot about clean pennies. That's what we're talking about. That's part of the clean. It wasn't cleaned. In other words, they pay 0 taxes. What I'm talking about is look at a billboard on the road too. Their trucks drive the highway to go change it. That's a tangible product. There may be some room to do a on that or something. I don't know. That's the kind of discussions that we're having with all these tax credits. There's a lot of other places that we can look to. There's incentive programs on the businesses. There's, the corporate franchise tax. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to look at. I would rather look at government spending first. In fact, I'm going to. That includes some of these giveaway programs. I'm not saying advertising is one, but I mentioned the movie industry a second ago. Mm-hmm. I think some of those have to be looked at very hard before we go out and say I'm extracting more money out of Moon's pocket because I'm going to force him to pay 4% sales tax on his advertising expenditures or whatever. So that's the whole point. And I think there's a balance. It's going to be a mixture of both. Unfortunately, expenses do go up. I'm not in any way taking up for the way we've been spending money in the state of Louisiana. We have to curtail it and look at that first.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Now, I would take it that just by listening and watching, do we get away from this special session at all? Do you see no way we don't have a special session?
Man, to tell you the truth, it's too early. I'd give you a 50-50 on either of that. I don't know what the governor's thoughts are on a special session. I don't know if, he's wanting us to come up with this concrete plan. I think that's going to be difficult. I think we'll know, we'll have a good idea of which direction that the state needs to go in solving this budget. But I couldn't tell you if we're going to have one or not. I know if we don't have one, it's going to be very difficult because we'll end up with a budget that's $1.5 billion cut or reduced, and we'll deal with that in appropriations. And
because you can't even, and tell me if I'm wrong, you can't even extend the sales tax in this next session. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's a general session, so you'd have to have a special session to deal with anything that is revenue, anything tax reform. It has to be a special session because we won't come back and visit that subject until the next year in a regular session.
Yeah, that's what I wanted people to know. That's why I say you're saying 50-50, but to produce any kind of new revenue, I just think as in the tax, doing it in a taxable way, you have to come back in a special session because this session does not allow for taxes to be increased.
Right. And look, that's part of this process that maybe the press does not understand. This is extremely complex, the issues, the things that we talk about in a room.
Sure.
You get 105 House members together, and then we're talking about advertising or we're talking about no sales tax on theater productions by a nonprofit petite theater or no sales tax on a non-public college athletic event, no sales tax on Jazz Fest, refreshments and stuff. Everybody has their
but remember
things
those,
they want to protect.
But remember those taxes, if they are increased, I still go back and say the middle class will pay most of them.
Oh, yeah.
I want people to understand. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. That's not the discussion I'm having with you. I'm just letting people know sales taxes, whether it be ad sales or whatever, somebody's going to pay for that. Somebody's going to pay for it. It's not the business. Businesses are going to move the taxes to somebody else.
Absolutely. And that's why I said beginning this conversation, it all drills down to the individual taxpayer. Your expenses go up, and if we extract more money out of your pocket, it makes it harder for you to pay your expenses. It's just a bad cycle that's never ending to that taxpayer. We have to look at spending first. We have to control the growth of government through the right means, and that is the solution. It's not to go out and tax the heck out of everybody. We have to be able to control spending first, then look at the stability of our budget.
Yeah. All right, Lance, always a pleasure. We'll do it again later, and best of luck.
All right, thanks a million, Moon. Good talking to you.
All right, good talking to you. All right, we got to take